So, more so's as always, just for you out there. So that's usually how I start this off. You ever listen to all of them? Alright. Now, the basic premise is utilizing the basic way that a mocha pot will ultimately function. I wanted to create it better. You know, like I like the mocha pot. And first, we should probably get into how a mocha pot works. Okay. So it's like water is hot, all right, but before it's even boiling, it'll produce a lot of steam. All right, and so like when steam gets into the upper part of the chamber, there's a almost like a wick in a like a kerosene lamp or something. So it goes down into the water, right? And the steam pressure will build up and it'll force water through. And at different temperatures, it'll do that pretty quickly. So you can end up having like a pretty cold initial start of like an infusion, but after it can get quite a bit warmer. My dog is again trying to just destroy my my arm as I record this. So, like, I wanted to say, like, the basic premise of how a mocha pot works is, the very definition of using, like, the most that you can, along with thermal siphons, like, siphons in general, of, the heat to do work as best as possible for you. Instead of needing gears, instead of needing all this extra stuff, you use heat to do work. And they're very, very efficient as a result. The only problem is like back when, the mocha pot was designed and thermosiphons were designed, while the effect was very neat and we'd known about it for a while, we hadn't used it to the efficiencies that we do these days, and with the understanding of different tubes, different ways of holding and waiting with valve timing and needing pressure difference to be able to allow for movement. Then we end up getting into like what we do now for engineering for these thermosiphons and designs that use that to best cool and or pump various fluids and liquids around. Okay. As I have my, this one's Starbucks. I think it's the house blend. It's a medium roast. It's okay. I don't think I did it right. Truthfully, they had a light like blonde roast that was really really good, and I still definitely recommend that one. But this one isn't hitting the way I would like. I'm not a big fan of Starbucks in general, but it was cheap, and I have Snaps currently, and I'm trying to get it to be renewed, and so it was like on a coupon that basically I think cut the price down, I think by half, or quite a bit, enough to where I was like, I'm going to buy 2 of these, because I was planning on paying for like close to $20 for like decent amount of coffee that I could have it for a while. I kind of stopped using my flair espresso, my flair press espresso maker, mostly just because it took a lot of effort in the morning to do. After a while, it was just like, oh yeah, no, I have to boil every bit of my sleep, like basically everything, like the entirety of that whole thing was necessary to try and preheat using the steam or have it in the boiling water, which was just actually insane after a bit. And the amount of water that I would go through, if I wanted to have just 2 damn shots am not even like trying to get into like how long it would take to grind my beans. And I have a Timemore C2 hand grinder. It's a little hand grinder, but I was like, all right, so I'm gonna start with the little, you know, a washer mod that changes spring tension. All right, so it's like you put a little washer in there, so that way you can get a tighter spring tension, you know. And then it's like, all right, well, there's this plate that's on the bottom, and the way they designed it, it was like, oh, they could make it so that way they wouldn't need this plate to like have it, so that way the tightening like little nut that clicks on this plate that I was talking about, it has these little indents, these little dents in it, and the plate's kind of like a washer with little bumps, and so it'll slide into the little dents, and that's where where your grind size is, how fine and everything after the amount of turns you've had, right? But it was like, all right, so well, if I get out a drill and I like drill in between those little dents, then I've got half steps, and so I did that, and it was like, oh, that's nice. Half steps are nice, you know what I mean? And then I set about like doing the equivalent of, I'm gonna grind so many goddamn fucking beans of coffee. It's just ridiculous, especially for a person that has snaps, and that's like for me genuine money that I don't have. That might mean I can eat something or not, but I was obviously quite passionate about it, and so I put the time and effort in to learn how to get this little grinder to actually finally be consistent. So I was freaking so annoyed. I was like, this is huge. This is a huge, ginormous particle coming out of here. And this is a tiny little, I can see it with my own eyes. But like, it's like Turkish Delight grind size. It's so small. That might as well have gone through a paper filter already. You know? And it was just like, that's ridiculously too inconsistent. Like, there's always a degree of variability, no matter what. But, like, that is really too far one way and another. And what I found was I'd get better results when I didn't use the hand crank part versus the hand drill that I had. You know, just get it done really fast. But it also would take like 20 minutes of grinding with that because of like how fine I had to get this, which is insane. Like, actually, genuinely, that's stupid. It's that level of, no, that's ridiculous. And all just so I could get espresso size grind, because it says it can do espresso. It can't really do espresso. Yeah, it just can't. Like, others say that it can, and it can do it, but it can't do it well, and it certainly can't do it to where it's like, I would consider that something that you wouldn't also upgrade immediately if you ever got a real espresso maker, which the Flair is a real espresso maker. See, that's the issue I end up having with people that are like, no, like the Neo, which I got the classic because it had like, a different basket or whatever. I don't know. I didn't know that little like pressure filter part would pop out for the Neo. And then that meant I still had that screen, because I wanted the screen. I didn't want any of the pressure like BS that it comes with for the Neo, because I was like, no, that's not real crema, that's not real any of it. No. So that was my issue mostly with it, but I can understand, especially for a lot of people out there that are just like, oh, I'm interested in trying espresso. And I'm like, yeah, but the flair, like the flair is a involved piece of kit where, like, yeah, sure, that would make sense for, oh, I don't have a grinder and I'm just gonna dump it in, whatever my pre-ground. And that's like, this one says espresso, it's like, this is the, like, Cafe Bustelo or something, right? It's like, this is a really finely ground. And they'll just dump it in. Like, I can understand that. But, like, the flair is pretty involved, and so I don't think their clientele, like their customer, market would really be a market for that. I think they, in every way for me, screw up by giving us that instead of, like, the pressure gauge. The pressure gauge is so much more important than that, like, little pressure filter thing. It's just way more important. But I'm gonna move off of all of that. It's like, all right, I focused on all the mods I could do, and eventually ended up breaking the damn thing, because it was never meant and or designed for you to use a fucking hand drill constantly on a hand grinder. Like, to put it in perspective, you take that little, like, crank, it's like, oh, I'm suddenly going 30, 40, 50 RPM at high torque. So you can't really do that. So it was never really designed for that. But that's a whole other thing for me. I'm like, there's got to be a way to do that. Like, have, like, a gear step up or something to those things where it's like, yeah, I finally am, like, I crank once and I got 20 rotations out of it. Like, that makes way more sense for those things. Because it's like, this is actually ridiculous how long it takes to grind these things. I broke it. I put it back together time and time again. Like, the plastic would melt. Or then, like, the little axle, like, bearings for where they're supposed to stay into the thing would pop off. Eventually I got it, like, situated again. Whole bunch of washers and other things to get that spring tension as high as I can get it. And I realized, like, this plate, these half steps are almost never used. And then it was like, I'm trying to tune this with, like, the perfect, like, little, and then the moment all that happened, it's like, oh, what do you know? The plate's no longer, and so I have to write down this number is what I'm getting for this. And then for the type of flavors and all the rest of it that I had to also, like, categorize. And it was like, I spent months working on this. Like, seriously, like, actual months doing this over and over and over to get things consistent, to be able to have, like, for this, because everything was medium dark to dark roast. Like, I'm a high altitude person, as in, like, I live in high altitude, and so my water boils at 93°C. And so preheating everything, even the basket, like, off of the steam that's coming off of this boiling water, for a good solid minute or two, because it's just you think it's relatively thin and everything, and it is, but plastic doesn't absorb a lot of heat, and so it takes a while. But, like, there's a metal thing in there, and so, like, that'll actually absorb heat, right? The basket part. But anyways, that turned into, well, I finally got more consistent shots. That's good, way more consistent flavor. But I could never get it above 86°C. Perfect temperature for dark roast, but that's it. Like, that's all you're getting. Like, literally, you can't do more than that. And so lighter roasts were always like, nope. And that's where the moka pot sort of thing came in, because it's like, well, it creates a steam, that creates pressure, it doesn't boil until it gets into a higher temperature. So it's like I would get it close to boiling is what I'm looking to do, because I don't have a moka pot right now, and that's the whole reason why it's like the moka pot inspired design has come about. It's like, man, I've been through this Flair espresso. I have this grinder. This is the grinder I've got. I can't get another grinder. Uh, you know, and so it's turned into like, well, I want a moka pot because higher temperatures equal, now I can get the lighter roast. And that's why I was talking about the whole, I was having coffee, but I'm having coffee from my French press that I'm using for immersion brewing. It's like preheating all this other stuff is what you got to do. It's a liter sized French press. You have to preheat it. It's a stainless steel, but as my dog dropped something off the bed that he was chewing on, so it's like you have to preheat it. It's a single walled vacuum sealed. It's not bad. Like, I like it. I just was never able to get good results from it. I eventually, looked up on YouTube what I could be doing wrong and what I could be doing right, kind of stuff. Finally found water temperature stuff. Finally found extraction methods, all this other stuff, and I was like, oh, yeah, all right. Let's try that. I'm going to do that one. I'm going to do this one. All right. It's like that was something I was doing. I did get good results. I never really kept any actual notes. You know what I mean? Like, I'm willing to, to put it in perspective, I have no ability to invest in any real hobbies. But I've got food and I've got coffee. So it's like, coffee is now my hobby. Like, coffee is the only real hobby I have. And I'm like, I need to stop having coffee because, like, it's kind of getting to that point where I'm gaining a sensitivity to coffee. And I'm older now, and I need to sleep more often, kind of stuff. And from what I understand, caffeine can decrease gray matter volume in the brain and change how the brain works in a given area for certain memory. And how it happens to be able to recall that memory. So I was like, those would be good things to have. Gray matter is apparently linked to emotional regulation. That's something I need. But then it's like, oh, I'm getting rid of the thing that makes it so in the morning I'm willing to get up at all. I'm willing to even stay awake. I'm willing to even do anything, like try and, do, like, basically anything. And then the routine of sitting down and being a little bit creative and, recording and, having some coffee along the way isn't so bad. I like that. That's a good routine. It's a routine. I'll usually watch a YouTube video or whatever. Right, I haven't even said the design. Anyways, but I wanted to talk about it because it's like, well, life's kind of changed a little bit on the whole espresso. I was like so gung-ho about espresso. And I still love espresso. Like the immersion brewing of a French press is not as good in terms of flavor and satisfaction as an espresso is to me. That's what that is. Still, though, I'm getting there in terms of technique. The basic technique is preheat, and then while that's preheating and I'm boiling up some more water, I then grind my beans fresh. Alright, and then I usually use unless it's dark roast is the 60 grams to 1 liter for French press stuff. Lighter roast is like 40 to maybe 47 you can get away with where I'm at, depending on grind size and everything. I'm still looking into grind size. I haven't been like really, really specific about it. I have like actual numbers. They're like, this is the amount of like turns over from like meaning getting it stopped. You know what I mean? Like you turn it all the way in and then you work it back. That's what it says to do. Thanks, Phaser. Yeah, to turn it all the way in, it can't go anymore, but you got to make sure you actually went all the way in. And typically, that's like 69 and a half turns in. And then from that, it's like you have to work back from there. And since I have half steps, you know, that's where like I can measure where I should be. And the grinders are far more consistent when they're not trying to do fine grinds, which I finally got fine grinds to be consistent. Finally. But like, still, it's like in the realm of like, it's not really meant to do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it can do it. It does it well. You should probably just leave it there, because going even a half step, once it gets to that point, more or less turns it into, this is not usable. I can't pull a shot anymore. It now takes like 45 to 60 seconds to pull a shot. It went through in like 20 seconds, if that. So it's like, that is the click. Like, that is the number. That is the click number. There's nothing you can do. You know? There's no playing around with it. So, anyways, and then immersion brewing is, I have been kind of laissez-faire, just not really caring, but I've gotten pretty decent results in terms of flavor and everything. And all of this is to lead to a moka pot inspired design, because it's like, well, I can't really, I'm trying to save money just in case I ever end up actually needing money for an emergency of any kind, because I don't really have money. So it's like, I don't really have an income, but every so often my mother will give me money to pay for my medicine, and sometimes I have a little bit left over, and so on like that, and she doesn't expect the money back. You know, it's like, well, whatever, it's a few bucks here or there, but it's like, it adds up over time for me, you know. But she's always so hypercritical about it. Like, oh, you know, I've got a little bit of, why don't you use that money for this? And I'm like, because I barely ever have money for myself. Literally ever have money to do anything. I can't go to do anything at all. I can't go to a restaurant, that's for sure. I can't go fucking, like, ever to any functions of any social variety, because they all cost money for you to get in with a ticket or something. I have no money. I have stamps. Stamps is not money. You can't use stamps for anything. It literally is, this is technically speaking like it's money, but it will only be accepted if these product items that they have all listed out, that are the only accepted things that it can be used on, at a grocery store that happens to have that in their system, then says, oh, you bought this, or trying to buy this, and so it will say, oh, this is a list item number, and then you can take this number, which is the money, from that. There are literally no ways around the snap thing. I've seen people fucking try and say that this is actual, like, money. It's not. It's never been money. Ever. It's the equivalent of, you have this many different, like, combos of these different foods, and then you can use whatever this number is, that it's still money, but I never really consider it that way. They call it money, it's not. You know what I mean? It's the equivalent of, this is to this, and like, this is the amount of combos that you ultimately have, that you can ultimately get out of that given number. You know what I mean? It's the equivalent of a vectorial system for an algorithm or an equation. You know, it's like, so which I don't think factorial is the right number, or word, not number, but like, how many different numbers are, something that you can add, multiply, subtract, whatever, not subtract, but multiply and or add together to make this number. Like, that's what that would be. Like, you can add these or you can multiply these and then you can make this number. Like, that's effectively what the equation is. Even though they're like, it is money, but it's not really. Like, it is money. I want to reiterate that it's like there's actual money there. But all money is effectively just a number. Okay, that's all it is. It's literally just a number. And they give it to you because, like, reasons. There are many different reasons. All the reasons are pretty much the same, of either a value of work or a value of something. Like, in terms of, hey, you're disabled, you need it, or you simply can't do something, and, that's normal for you to ultimately have. You can call it a handout, like some dumbasses that have commented on Philip DeFranco's, internet video that he put out a while back. The moment this person commented to me, I was like, wow, yeah, no, you were immediately that person. You are a narcissist. Like, there's no way you're not. Like, it's an excuse. The drugs are an excuse. I'm like, yeah, you don't give a shit about that person. You have no empathy. You have no sympathy. You literally don't ever consider their side. And I'm guessing you don't do it for, like, anyone other than yourself. And you'll even do it in such a way with yourself, you won't even allow yourself to ultimately have emotions that are valid for any of this situation that's going on. You know what I mean? Talk about getting raised in a fucking family like that, or truthfully just going that direction, because that's kind of like how America views all this shit. So it turns into that for me in a lot of ways, but it's like, whatever, doesn't really matter, but it's not a handout. You know what I mean? People have inherent worth and values. You see what I mean? It's like a capitalistic bourgeois sort of style, like where you are a productive thing, and if you're not, you have no value or worth. Like, you need to be producing something. And it's like, and only these, because this is the other thing they did, these ways, for these things. So, corporations, government, stuff like that, that is the only value. That's the only way you gain value and productivity. Not, oh, you're doing, like, the YouTube as best you can. And, oh, like, you're trying to live with your fucking mental illnesses as best you can by yourself, with no ability to really pursue anything that would help you. Go fuck yourself, person that doesn't even know me. Which is actually, like, what that was, like, her saying. And I'm like, you don't even know me. I'm like, I know how you commented and how you reacted. I know how it speaks volumes and what your real thought process is there. I know I called you out the first fucking comment and reply after mine, because I was like, this person's looking and fishing for sympathy from others, and they're gonna get it. That's the same shit I had to deal with my mother and my two sisters and my father. My whole family. Because of me. You know what I mean? I can relate to that motherfucker. Because it's like, my mother's the one on SSDI. I can't even get on SSI. You know what I mean? Like, meanwhile, when I was a kid and getting into becoming a teenager, ooh, that is basically the exact shit that my mother would pull on me along with my two sisters to my dad and others. Like, she's so terrible, use an excuse. I'm a kid, I don't know nothing, man. I'm trying to learn. You're supposed to, like, parent and teach me. I don't know why I am. The fuck is this? Fucking piece of shit family. Just never stopped, too. It's like, don't get me wrong, I agree. Just like I said in that comment, it's like, yeah, no. Hey, that's not okay for them to have done. But they don't fucking know. And they have a fucking mental illness that makes it such that it's way more difficult for them to know. Like, they literally, for schizophrenia, for her situation, don't know the difference between reality and fiction. They don't know. Especially if they're in an episode. Because for them, it's correct. Like, that thought, that is 100% right. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. There could literally be, like, a reason that you'll hear later when they're no longer in that episode that will be like, what in the ever fucking loving shit? You know, when you hear that? Right? And you go, I don't know how I fucking thought that was okay. You know, like that thought, you know, with that reason, made sense. You know? That kind of a thing. That literally means they don't know the difference between right and wrong when that's going on. They don't. That being said, they also know people will take advantage of them. I used to have that shit happen. Different way. Of course, I'm talking about it like as a kid when there's obvious hypocritical views on various things where I'm allowed to do this, but they're not allowed to do that. Or it's okay and acceptable when I do this, but not that. Or them. You know what I mean? And then I started realizing as I got older, it's like a lot of people have a lot of fucking dumbasses like around their life where they'll use that excuse, the double standards and the hypocritical and more. And it's just like seen as normal. Like people don't really do a lot of work on that. And they're fully accepting of those things of themselves like that. They vote and all this, but I don't know. That one triggered me for a bit. Every time I got like a little, oh, someone responded notification, I was just fucking, Yeah, I went and commented on Lauren Boebert's situation, getting frisky online, on Reddit. Man, this person named Slayer of Anubis. I still haven't clicked their damn channel, or not channel, avatar for their user, whatever fucking shit. But man, did they immediately go into mine, and then just scroll down all of the other videos I have, and other posts, and then go to a BDSM Personals thing. Which that one is a very long post that's trying to be like, hey, you know, like, I'm pretty well aware of who I am and what I'm looking for, and I'm looking for the same thing. You know, I'm trying to be, I hate the fact that I used emojis. I hate emojis. I don't like emojis. I'm a huge non-fan of emojis. And yet, like, there's probably people that like it if you use emojis. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that was a whole other thing. Another version of the same damn thing. So, let's just actually get to the mocha pot. I keep trying to fucking get that done. Jesus, lordy loo, you know? It's kind of working off of a thermal siphon design. So, a way to put it is, it creates steam. Steam creates pressure. But I'm not going to be using the steam ever. Like, you know, same thing with like the mocha pot. You're not really supposed to ever use the steam. If it sputters, that means you don't want that. That's kind of what the point is of a mocha pot, right? And so the basic is sort of like it boils first and foremost, and then it has a thermocouple kind of like car radiators, or cars do. To once it gets up to temperature, the coolant that's in the engine will then slowly open up a valve that allows for the coolant to go to the radiator now and then get pumped around. Cool stuff. But in this instance, we're using that as a thermosiphon. So the chamber above is sealed. The heat from the steam goes into the chamber, but that's how it will condense into the chamber below, that then sits with the thermocouple. It then has, once the thermocouple is there and enough boiled water has happened, it opens up a second valve, because this thermocouple opens up the valve for the water to go through, but also there needs to be like a way for the air to get from the chamber to somewhere else. And so like once that opens up, I need to have that also open up the valve to the chamber below where I'm heating up water, but it's a one-way valve. All right, so as a result, it's hotter now, and it's actually, because it's hotter here down at the bottom of the chamber, even though it's a one-way valve, now there has occurred a flow, so a flow path like a thermosiphon, which creates a lower pressure below in the chamber, and it sucks in while also pushing up that water that's at that temperature that we're looking for at that thermocouple. Once it's gone through a certain amount of this is where like toilets come into play. So it's like this little floater. They have this little floating thing that's attached to the this little arm, and so once it gets up to a certain point, it'll yank on the chain that's on it, and then it'll close the valve, and so no more water goes into the tank above. So same type of design philosophy. Once it gets up to a certain point of flow, which means it has to measure it in a different way, but it's sort of the same thing, it then closes off the valve below that allows for the chamber that was heating up the water and creating the steam to then be closed off. Good stuff. And then it then sends all that steam off to an area near the top that then just sort of blows it off as very, very low pressure, very, very, very dispersed steam. And the only reason why I'm doing that is because it helps clean off and allow for that to act as a secondary thermocouple. So like it'll open up another valve that drains anything that's in that chamber below or anything in the chamber above that's not going to be able to go in any further, right? So it's like that then closes off that, then this opens up, and then it'll drain off into the bottom heating pot, and then that's an easy way to just like dump it out. You can just dump that out, and it's now mostly just steam. So that went through, it should be able to remain pretty consistently clean, and they're fairly large little tubes, so getting out that little wire brush, pipe cleaner stuff, easy enough to clean it all out kind of stuff. At least I felt. Then the chamber is a different type of chamber design. So for me, I'm a big fan of utilizing not surface area, utilizing geometric features for increased efficiencies in flow rate and or styles of flow characteristics. So in this instance, I was thinking about like a type of teardrop diamond. So think a long funnel into a dome that then has a slight funnel from that dome tip to the top that then pretty much just mushroom tips over, like a little S bend. Sort of like, again, like toilets do. They have a little S trap. And so once it goes up to that, it'll drain back off into the chamber below. And that then helps basically with allowing for there to be less head pressure to actually make the necessary movement and flow for the coffee. But the reason why I have it like that is because it will push the grounds up. They can't make the S bend. They can't go to the little tip, right? Because you can put a little series of filters there, basically offset holes. And then the rest of the chamber becomes kind of like an immersion brewer, under pressure and temperature brewing, kind of like a espresso moka pot style brewing system, which I thought was good. I like that idea. What I've found for my in my head, being able to imagine how it's going to flow and everything else, it doesn't really work very well. I don't really like it much. Like, it does what I want it to do, like what I was saying, like for it to push up the bed, and then the water will ultimately saturate the whole amount of all the coffee, and then still filter it, and I can still put a regular cotton, like, little wad filter in between that if I wanted to, and sell those. Those are probably very easy to if not cotton, then it'd be paper, using like reused paper. So so old paper, like, is kind of sometimes hard to recycle, right? But the long strands and everything are perfect for making a little wad, like 3D shape, which then means it's really good at becoming a recycled little filter that can be sold really cheaply. So, but the point I wanted to talk about was, like, this little chamber idea, cool, but it doesn't work very well. Like, it doesn't taste great. It doesn't. Alright, so it'll push this dry coffee up to the top, alright, and then it'll then, swirl it around effectively. There isn't really much of a bloom, you know what I mean? There isn't really much of the proper actual extraction. The dome doesn't really allow for good extraction, because it'll come from the bottom up to the top. Basically, extraction is just not good. That's what it is. It flows wonderfully, but it doesn't extract well. So I had to go back to the drawing board for a long time, and I haven't really gotten anywhere on it, because it's like, there isn't really a good one on that one that I can, like, take advantage of. There's a couple of different designs that I've had over the course of thinking about it, which would all come from, like, okay, so it's going from a larger to a smaller, so like a bigger donut that then forces it to a smaller area, kind of donut, but then it's kind of like a column, so it's like a toroidal. It's still hollow, but it's just elongated, yeah, like those old toys that no man has ever thought that maybe if I put some lube in it, I might be able to do sexual intercourse to these things. And as anyone that definitely has never done it, or attempted, will probably tell you, wink, wink, never stick your dick in that. Ever. It's not gonna work. It's not what you think. It will not bend. It does not have the necessary tolerance for your size. And it definitely does not have the necessary plastic for it to be anything at all other than hyper frictional. So it's really not going to work. I'm going to move off of that to like, well, this, does it work? And the answer was kind of, sort of. It's a little better now. Certainly more consistent. Like the hole in the center is really the main crux that I ended up having with it. It's like now it's decently complicated to manufacture. And then it's like, oh, I have to have a funnel that goes from that. And then it's like, well, I'm not utilizing this freaking empty space very well. It's like, what is this for at this point, And then how do I get a thermocouple in here? I need like an outside thermocouple and an inside. It just became annoying to deal with. It would work. And it's more consistent in terms of flavor, and you'd be able to dial it in. But it's like, for all the cool technical engineering stuff, I'd go with an yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I expected more out of that at that point. So I went through like simple is better. Back to like the simple is better stuff. Like, I like the little teardrop thing, but the teardrop thing doesn't work. So it's like, let's try and do something else for that instead, where it turned into, it'll come in from the top instead with that little S-trap kind of thing. And it'll drain down at towards the bottom. And then now it's like a pour over instead that then has like a bunch of extra water at the top that's going to flow in. The problem in having is that like the little small like funnel that's there doesn't work. Like, it only comes in one area, and that does not diffuse it properly, and it doesn't agitate anything properly. You know what I mean? And so then I was like, all right, I'm just going to put a filter down there where the dome is. Like, that little thing, so I'll just put it in, like, the funnel, but I'll put, like, a little filter right above that, where that funnel goes into diameter-wise, where the dome is. So it's, like, just below into the funnel, and then run at the widest part of the inside diameter of that funnel at the top. That's where the dome will slot in, and then it should be just fine because it'll act like a diffuser. It's a metal filter, but it's really more realistically a filter. I have to make the funnel a little longer, but then I was like, right, I can also just have offshoots to that funnel, which are where little, pressure gradients are. So I started looking at pressure gradients in in my mind. Because it's like, well, this feels like this amount of pressure, this feels like that amount of pressure. This is a hot zone, this is a cold zone. For more pressure here, more pressure there. And I was like, alright, I'm going to change the filter size diameter, this, that, and it's like I'm chasing all these little hot freaking pressure zones. I was like, I have a triple filter that has like offset holes, so that way it like goes in and then it spreads out, and then it goes in and it spreads out, and then it like really makes sure that it sprays the little water, but not really sprays, but it's like allows for that water to then use surface tension to then collect into one big stream, consistently at that pressure. Because it has to go through, which acts as the kind of like a thermocouple now again, but in this instance, it's not. I did kind of use like the thinness and thickness and pressure differentials to allow for it to also act like I want it to be only able to go through once it's reached this pressure, because it would have to be able to have it come out anyways. You know what I mean? But like, it's not a thermocouple, and so like that point now that's also, like I was saying with the espresso maker, the Flair espresso maker, those little pressure portafilters. Not their market, I would have to assume, but in this instance, this is effectively exactly what that is. Hey, now it's useful for something. It's perfect for this very particular application. After water comes to the point where it's hot enough and it's gotten to a point where the water in the chamber and the flow rate in the chamber has gotten significant enough. So it's like this is where the chamber around it has to get not just hot enough, it has to be under enough pressure, which I got the pressure part, okay, in there, but now it's like the water, I need enough flow rate. And so like the steam might be pushing a lot of, water, but it's not actually that much water. It might be really hot immediately, but it's not enough flow. You know what I mean? You need more water in there. So I'd end up going back to the drawing board on like the moka pot stuff, because it's like, well, it still can push water. So then I got another chamber, a secondary chamber, so it's a 2-piece chamber, or like this one is the boilie water stuff, and then this one helps as like a pre-cooler, sort of, but not really, because like, while yes, the steam still has to go through this, because it's part of like the little tube system, and it condenses, it'll drop back off of that into the chamber below. Alright, but then a little bit of it during that produced work energy, it increased pressure. So during its heat up phase, it pushes it a little bit into a chamber in which the coffee is in. My dog is going after my arm again, and I'm trying to talk. Please, Phaser, no. Alright. So, this turned into like a diaphragmic style and thermal siphonal style. For like diaphragm equals, with thermal siphon, increased degrees of actual efficiency of surface area and total volume of water movement to energy needed, like a thermal siphon Stirling engine thing, to increase the effectiveness of what I'm trying to accomplish from what it's doing. So this one, which I'll get into the little other, like little, from that funnel into like the little offshoots, I'll get into it. I have not forgotten about it. The reason why I was talking about all these little holes is I was trying to chase these hot, like, pressure zones that are just terrible for the coffee. Like, the coffee is like, oh, look, I don't want to go ever anywhere over there once it's there. It's terrible. Like actually just, I was like, oh no, I got better coffee now. But then this, it's effectively channeling at all times. So I hated that. It's like never-ending channeling. So it's like, this was a way to get around channeling, but I'll have to talk about that later. So I want to talk about this because this is what helped that be a thing. It's like, there's a whole back and forth with how this all went down. It's like, it doesn't seem to be anything related to that. It'll make sense in a second. Just like how I'm talking about the moka pot, I'm talking about all these other things, and then eventually you'll get, oh yeah, no, so that's why you have like a pressure portafilter in here. Yep, pretty much. Alright, so this secondary is like a condenser, you know what I mean? It's got water, but it's not really pushing on the water, you know what I mean? And it's not moving through the water, but it has to interact with the water and it has to heat it up. So it's like, how does do this? Lower pressure, flow rate through, then it dumps back into the chamber below. Alright, so like that steam will go up, off to the sides, all that stuff at the top, where that's a sealed chamber, where the coffee will actually sit, and then that'll go all the way back down through this condenser, which will then also go through into underneath the water that's trying to be boiled, and then percolate through that, alright? Which actually increases the efficiency of the heating for that given steam and boiling system. So it's like that steam that's trying to come up, well, it has seating now, because steam surprisingly enough, if you seat it, even if it's not as hot as the water, that steam will actually make more steam. It's a weird trick of like pressure differentials. Like it's less dense in this area, and because it's hot enough over there to have become steam, but it's not yet because there's too much pressure, it then allows for more steam. But of course, it increased pressures, so there's a balance act of how much you can actually get out of it. Now, the condenser isn't really technically a condenser, okay? But it does heat up an area, it does reduce pressure in another area. By reducing pressure as it flows through using good old Bernoulli's principle starts acting, and a chamber that had originally had this amount of pressure now has even less pressure, and so it of course will suck up water, acting like a pump. Now, we want it to suck up a heat exchanger like, but actually kind of not. This one turns into a cool little trick of science called a double percolation, where as it goes through, it then seals off thanks to what is the equivalent of a pressure differential valve. So like the pressure is now, because this dense, hot liquid, which is not that hot yet, goes through, and then another area has become open. So it's sealed off, it has way more pressure that it has to have to get through that. But now this other area has opened up way less pressure. You've got a recirculating like valve system. So it'll go through and it'll only be able to pump in so much, and then this area now goes through, and then it'll pump in. And then that one, because it pumped in, now suddenly makes this area over here, which originally seemed like it had gained enough pressure, has not gained enough pressure. And so it'll go off to somewhere else. And a weird trick, this is why we call it a double percolation, for that to be the case, because this is moving, it has to see this movement of this fluid that's around it, or nearby, in a big old tube system. And the tube system is essentially, well, this is the chamber I wanted you to go to in the first place. And so, like, that opens up a thermocouple, the first, kind of area, like all of them are basically a big old thermocouple. So it's like when they get warm enough, it'll open it up. Now, steam, while hot and has a much higher specific energy, isn't very dense, and then this will immediately cool it. And so, like, it'll basically go through a whole bunch of these little tubes, and then it will have warmed up a much larger mass, but then it will have cooled down. And then if you use it with the right little layering, so this is where, top to bottom, left and right, meaning like 3D structures come into play. Now, at first, you're like, this just looks like a freaking radiator, like a bunch of little tubes, and I'm just pouring water, and I don't know why I'm doing this. Right? And then it opens up. So it's like the tubes go through, like the steam goes through, and then this will open up because the steam opened up a one-wave thermocouple valve. That then has the water enter in that area, but it can't go into the chamber above until another has ultimately made enough of a vacuum effect for it to do that. And so when you look at this, like in that context, it's more of a heat exchanger pump. It's a literal pump that's a heat exchanger. So it's a Stirling pump that's a heat exchanger. Alright, like, it's a whole bunch of other, physics principles, super well-known physics principles. We're talking like very well-known, used all the time physics principles. Anyways, but it means that there's an inside and an outside, and there's, top to bottom, left to right. That's going on here. And so as the steam will go through, it'll start rapidly increasing that use of work energy of the steam, because eventually it won't need to go to the condenser at the top, which is where it's preheating that place where the coffee's going to end up. Instead, it'll go just straight directly through this to increase pressure and flow rates, because that one turns into it's hot enough. Thermocouple go burr, then says no for valve, and says go here instead. Basic programming stuff for engineering language. Now go through this more, do so such that more flow happens, and then pressure equal flow for water. Like all water pressure is just flow rates given a certain size of nozzle. Alright? And so that all led to pressure differences. Pressure differentials. So it's like this is a hot spot on the cone going down. Like it's in a given rotating cross-sectional area. So it's like it goes from top down all the way to the tip, and then it'll go back up to the top, depending on how it is that you try and reduce that pressure. Alright, so these little offshoots turned into a different type of effect where the nozzle has a joining tube, which this one just turned into. I have cone, in cone I put these things called like T's, like an extruded aluminum, effectively, you know, like little slots in them, and then stuck to cone to other cone, and then now good. I just put hole there, another pressure thing, like, you know, filter, and work now. And so as it initially goes through, it's fine. Then as it fills up, it'll start to have a higher pressure but a very high flow rate towards the tip. You get Venturi's effect, alright, and then you get Bernoulli's effect. So as the sides, once that starts to happen, of the cone become far more pressurized, which is something you don't want, because that's a boundary layer, a massive channel that makes it all taste not so great. Alright, this suddenly turns into, oh, I now will flow just fine. Like, genuinely, that's all it is. So it'll go from the top, and it'll go down, and then it'll go towards the tip, and then it'll start up at the top again. And all that does is it'll suck in water from the sides, and then it increases flow rate exactly everywhere it really needs to for every hot spot of pressure there happens to be. Before, it didn't have a place to go. Now it has a place to go at the right given pressure in a much larger surface area. So better extraction, better flavors, and then it all has to go from that bottom somewhere. Okay? Well, remember that top chamber that we heated up that made a thermocouple? It's less dense. The air, right? Like once it hits a certain, and this is where the bottom is, alright? Okay? Of that. So like once that air gets less dense, it's now like a vacuum. But it's like, remember the in between the condenser pump Stirling thing? And then how it has to relate to this thing? Same thing. So it's like this steam from here is no longer to go back into the steam below. Alright, it's boiling, it's good to go, I don't need it. So that's going to go around that chamber again once that has filled up, and it pushes out that thermocouple valve, but it also pushes out the top valve that I was talking about earlier. That's another type of thermocouple. Alright? All that means is that it'll heat up that area, making it less dense, and then also pushes more air out because there's steam around. Very diffused steam, though. Just want that to be very, very clear, because it's like, I don't want people to get burned. So I want it to have very low mass and be very not as hot as it could really be. So it's essentially warm, humid air that's flowing fairly fast. Because good old Bernoulli's principle has to take effect. And so like the chamber is going to have air sucked away from it, but then depending on that given vacuum, with the coffee that's now going to have to get pulled through that area where the nozzle is into this chamber, which this one turns into a, well, the chamber that's around it is another version of just like, well, it's a donut, more or less. I mean that it's more or less just a donut. Yeah, it's not even a joke. It's effectively just a donut. Like, picture like round donut. Yeah, toroidal figure. But the reason why I'm talking about it like that, because like that makes fun. That's fine with the right size hole, for that little cone teardrop shape and the little S things. A-okay, right? But that has to go from that nozzle into another little chamber that then has to be able to use a thermal siphoning wicking process. So like, it's more dense here, more pressurized. Like, naturally that means it wants to go somewhere. Well, it won't open up the valve at the top of the chamber until that has been fully filled anyways. And the reason why that's the case is because during that process it is already pushing air from that chamber alongside of all those tubes that I have to have to where it's draining in. Alright, now a moka pot goes up and then it goes down the stem. I can't do the stem because there's a ginormous thing in the way. Alright, and it's literally that. Like, that's the basic premise of this. Alright. But you know what I do have? A bunch of holes at the top. Because it's basically like a sleeve and a sleeve that are extruded correctly. Like, think stamped steel. And then, or, whatever, right? And then, like, you just roll them the right way. And then, next thing you know, like, it just slots in with the right threads. And you weld it a little bit. And it's really cheap to manufacture. Good tolerances, all around kind of stuff start to happen. But cheap to manufacture, easy to design this really quickly kind of stuff, and then you get a great result. That's the whole point and premise of it. Alright, so that has to go off to the sides, and then it goes and gets broken. So it's like, this is another, there's a column, so that in this case it's just a circle. Instead of like a donut where there's a hole, there's a circle where then it goes off into 4 spots, and then those 4 spots go inwards and then on the outsides, and they have to get thin to be able to do this. That's why there's so many of them. And that's why everything's kind of like stamped steel or aluminum extrusion process. It's like it'll all click in and be fully something that you can just take apart. But, easy to manufacture, not so complicated to put together once you know about it. But, like, when you look at it, it's like, there's a bunch of whatever the fuck flimsy bullshit this is. What is this? But then it all gets together and it's all really rigid. So, that kind of thing. But those are effectively like the connecting points for the top, basin, and then the side, heat exchanger, all that stuff. Anyways, that'll fill up that area, and then it's already going to be lower heat anyways because the steam was already around, and then the top part where you have to have it be sealed, so it's like it has a lid to screw on, but like there are holes on the inside. But those holes also are just doing like a little S-bend off to the outside, right? Which is fine. That's literally the whole point of it. But what it means is, like, when coffee comes in, it'll then dump in, instead of going around the S-bend, because that's way harder to do, it just goes into the basin below. That also helps act as a pump. That helps to act as a pump to push air out, and also along with the steam now has like a valve, because like, while yes it is lower pressure because it's moving, because the water is now there, it can't go that way. It was originally going that way a little bit, and so it's essentially the equivalent of like it's pushing against it, and then it doesn't see it as like having a lower pressure. So it's like it's pushing in there with the coffee, right? So it's like it's been bifurcating, but at the top of the lid, so you have to seal it. At first, it's more or less completely sealed, but once the thermocouple, and that's the lid part, so the thermocouple gets hot enough, and then it will expand up and also move, which exposes the necessary hole and valve structure. So as that changes, so it's like that little S-trap changes completely, which is what I'm trying to get at. It's like once the coffee comes in and it starts going in, that cools it, it shuts it down, and then that steam then and the air then get added in from inside of the basin and a little bit from the outside, from the very, very top of the lid. So it'll suck a little bit of air in from the top, but mostly from the basin, okay? Because the lid has to be something that you take off eventually, and people want their coffee. So I don't want to get too hot, kind of stuff. And they also want to be able to grab this with like a handle, sure, but just in case, because I do have a handle, but just in case, I also don't want them to burn themselves on the hot steam, like that kind of stuff. So that one turned into why there's like a sleeve within that, a sleeve over all this, effectively is what that is, which helps out as the dog sneezes, of course. My mother texted me. Alright, so let's see here. Right, text her real quick. Be done with this. I have to do my it's laundry day for me, just so everybody knows. It's Sunday. So, anyways. Right. So that's just a separate kind of like it slides in and it rests onto the bottom of the hot pots. The two different hot pots there. So it's like those cover those, but they're not really there for anything other than like. So like that sleeve covers those hot spots, but it's not there for anything other than taking in heat from that outside with like the little spots that are resting on it, and then using that as a convection effect cooler, sort of. Okay, so like those are wider, and then it has to go inwards, and then it has air come around out the outside at that little pinch point. Instead of going through the pinch point, it goes through little holes that are around that, and then that'll travel up the sides of the sleeve, and then the rest of the steam does its thing. Alright, so that way, that's now just a static fixed air point, because I don't want it to actually gain more air or less air. I want the steam to do the work from the inside and at the top of the pot, right? And so that way you have something that's connected there that also has a handle to it that makes it so that you're less likely to get burned. I can't say it's impossible, because people find a way, it seems like. But like, still, now you have the ability to, with thermocouples here, tailor the heat that you want this to start at, and because of the kind of pressurized portafilters that are coming pre-installed, but there are, as a result of that, different sizing options for that. So you can have higher pressures to lower pressures with different heats. All right. The size of your grind then turns into the size of your filter along the side of the chamber that you'll put your coffee in. All right. Same thing with you can still get paper filters that'll just be smaller that will fit the funnel. You know what I mean? And then it's basically a version of a really fast, easily made, steam pressured espresso maker that's like a moka pot, an immersion brewer, and a pour over. It's like all of the things effectively. Because like once it starts draining, it has finally made the connection as to go into the basin, it then sucks it out way more. There's a lot less pressure during that moment, and it's a lot less immersion brew, and then it'll just rapidly flow in. And it'll look really cool, but you can't really see it. But the lid is hollow. Or, well, hollow, yes. A better way to put that is it's just a lid within a lid, but for me, it's like I'm trying to say that it's transparent. Alright, so it's like it's hollow, yes, but it's transparent. So it's like you can't see in there, which I like and I prefer. Because then if it's not doing it after a certain point, I'd be fucking terrified. It has a bunch of steam relief valves everywhere, effectively. You know, so it'll be fine on that side. That's not in any way an issue. In fact, there really is an issue. I don't really have an issue with any of this. Not even kidding. Normally, I always have an issue with my designs. My designs almost always have an issue. I have no issues. Like, even the, like, little bifurcation things is, like, very necessary. Makes so much sense to do it that way. It's stupid if you didn't, because it wouldn't hold anything for, like, the little donut. Actual, like, immersion, all that stuff, where your coffee rests and sits. Like, so, like, total sense. Need that anyways, And then the sleeves make total sense, because then it's like, well, that needs to be stiffer. Oh, yeah, no, that fixes that. Lid, same with the outside. Now it's stiffer in all ways, because it has an outside cooler sleeve that makes sure that you don't burn yourself. It's done, effectively. I guess for other people, it'd be the same as any other coffee, brewing thing. It's like, so what's the size of my grind? What's the roast level of my grind? What is the, amount that I use for this? And it's like, well, I can't tell you that. You know what I mean? Like, I can tell you, like, this is how much it can hold. Roughly at this, grind size for this given particle distribution, plus or minus. And that's all I can do, which is what it would come with. It'd be like, this espresso particle distribution size grind of this given size is able to hold, or able to fill this chamber this amount. And it'd be like 20 grams, or really realistically, we're looking at 25 to 35, depending on a couple of factors, actually, for the size of the one you buy, the size of the chamber that holds your coffee that you want to have, because this would be modular at that point. It's just like, well, you can have it be smaller, but then you can have that be larger, because then that's just a different sizing option. You know what I mean? And then it's like, this is a package that comes with this amount, and, already all told, or you can buy individual things that you would want, and that makes it a lot easier and more simplified in all aspects to sell it. So, yeah, that's what that would be. But they don't make them. So, it'd be the whole, well, I guess I'll have to figure out how to get some sheet steel and some bending and a couple of tack welders and some electroplating doohickery stuffs. So that way I can really make sure after, tack welding a couple of things, electroplated, it should be pretty darn sealed, and then a couple of thermocouples will just be like bought and with the right little gasket valve area, built in, kind of stuff, and then it's done. I'd be able to make it myself. I just have to do some CAD design, and then that'd be it. I'd just be like, alright, so I need like this, and then I'd have to do about that, and done. It's not even like a joke. But if I wanted to like really make it so that way like anyone could do it, then it would be like, okay, so here's this. I'll sell it to you for, I don't know, $50. Fuck it. Here's a $50 design, like in a CAD file. It's encrypted. You get like a key for your specific download. Please don't redistribute this. I have no money or income. I need to be able to eat, you damn bastards. You're totally allowed to modify it however you want, though, once you've got it. But, like, there's that. Everybody gets so annoyed. That's what I feel like that feeling. But it's like, I have no income. I'm trying to get on SSI. I am trying to reapply for food stamps. Snaps is what that is. So I can eat. Shut up about it. Especially since I'm almost positive at this damn point someone will have like a 3D or a ceramic or some other shitty, like brute force. I'm gonna make a huge, ginormous, like mountain of them and sell them on Amazon or whatever. After I paid $50 for a design. He doesn't even have money to be able to patent his shit. This is patentable. I'm gonna make so much money on this bitch. Best $50 fucking I ever spent. They'll end up just fucking saying like, oh yeah, no, I was the one that made it. And then they'll patent it. Where it all came from me. First and foremost, I was the one who did it. Wasn't anyone else. You know what I mean? He's so fucking pissed after all. It's like, oh, this guy, the starving, doesn't have fucking income, seriously mentally ill person, got fucking screwed over by a bunch of people who have money. And the ability to sell things and manufacture shit in a larger capacity. And everybody likes the design, and oh, but fuck that guy. And, oh, why would he try and fucking ever think it would be okay, somehow, some way, to go after these so nice, they're such good businesses. He's just looking, he looks set, but, I'm like, fuck you. Then we look at it also when it comes down to Time More, which I had to get a Time More because like that was the only thing that was cheap enough for me to buy that my mother, it's not me that bought it, my mother bought it for my birthday. That was my birthday present, a hand grinder and a flair espresso maker. And I had to argue so hard for it. Like there was screaming and yelling and shit. And it's like, I need something at all to fucking get into. I am stuck alone in my apartment. I have literally no ability to do anything except walk around outside. And oh, by the way, I have psoriatic arthritis. And yeah, apparently, which I didn't know at the time, but I got diagnosed later, as having degenerative foot arthritis. And I need to have a surgery on my fucking foot, which I'm scared to do because that's the only way I can get around. Because I have an e-bike that I also had to argue my ass off for. Because with the trailer, yeah, if I didn't, she would have had me try and walk with a like little dolly with a fucking sack on it, as if that was so fucking easy, because there's no buses, there are no public transports in the area at all, not a one. There are no ride sharing services either in the area at all. And where's the money coming for that? Every time I listen to motherfuckers try and make it, you can do shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. You are an idiot that's trying to make excuses to double down on your view and perspective. That's all you're doing. Shut the fuck up. Grow a little. Learn to look beyond your own personal view. Fucking goddamn mistakes, man. They think that they're functional somehow. Well, they ain't functional on that side. Sure are able to fucking do manual labor and shit, though. Which makes them have more value and worth than me. I'm a slave. I have more value and worth. I slave away for the wage. That's what allows me to have worth and value. They said so. Nice. Well, unfortunately, I can't do that. Fuck yourselves. Jeez. But that's what that is. And so, like, yeah, I've got an e-bike. That one turned into I had to go into my room. That at the time I was living with my mother in their house over in a nearby town. But yeah, no, she just decided to open the door after I closed it, because I was like, I don't want to fucking have that like argument. I don't want to be screaming anymore. This is fucking really rough. I can't do this. I've already become like a very stressed out, anxious, depressed person, because it's like I cannot walk that far. Like, I am having already a hard time getting out of my damn like house that that I'm staying at. Let alone like, hey, so this, my feet and my whole body hurts, and then like I'm fucking definitely not having an easy time lugging perishable, in some cases, squished together in a fucking sack, dolly thing that, was the reason and way I got around when I was homeless as well, with my clothes and shit. That's how I was able to get around. And had all of everything I owned inside of this and or pushed on top of it, because there were no carts in the area at all. And it certainly wouldn't be easy to lug those fuckers through the goddamn brush and trails to set up my tent so I could fucking sleep. It's like, go fuck yourselves, idiots. You fucking out-of-touch rich people who have opportunities and fucking functionality. You ableist garbage. I fucking hate them. But that's my family. You know what I mean? No, it's fine. I don't, I have SSDI. You should be more empathetic and sympathetic to my issues. Thanks, Mom. You never respond or ever talk to me anymore. Oh, really, Amber? The older sister. Oh, really? After I reached out and tried to connect with you, after you didn't even try to talk to me. for years when you went off to go apparently drop out of your fashion school after getting over 100K in debt, and then that student debt got wiped out when mom got on SSDI. And you're just like, go into debt, you'll pay it off. You would have never been able to pay it off. You never would have met your boyfriend who's a lawyer and had the fucking opportunities you did if you didn't have that happen. You're a fucking massive tard and cunt. I don't like you. I reach out to you, mom's having these issues, what does she try and do? Kill herself. Hey, she's fine. Just do it with my younger sister too, same fucking thing. Why do you always come around here and complain about how mom's treating you? And that you're concerned about her. Talk to my dad. Yeah, I don't really want to stop fucking working until very late at night. And yeah, we're going to couple counseling and blah blah blah, all this other shit, and eventually she tries to do it after I fucking say, I'm worried. Nobody fucking hears me. I'm the one that spends more time with her outright. I'm the one with more issues than anyone in the family. They're all functional motherfuckers. My older sister, fashion designer in LA. My younger sister, she's got a fucking goddamn mechanical engineer boyfriend who works for NASA in Virginia right now, that she met at a fucking party in Tucson. Randomly one day, my mom was like, I'm just going to sell that, and they get it done within a month. She'd already been paying them rent. You know, free, she gets free electricity, free water, and internet, I think, or roughly. And then that's like, all right, I'm angry at the fact that you basically gave me no options. And, oh, by the way, this guy that I just met for like maybe a month or 3 months or something like that, I don't know, it was relatively short. But it's like, nah, I'm going to go live with him. Oh, score, though. He lets her do it. He gets to go live with him over in fucking Virginia. She doesn't even really have a job. She fucking keeps stopping all of her jobs. They're too hard. They're too rough. They're this, they're that. I'm like, oh, really? So it's like everyone else has to deal with shit. But everybody's like, no, she's fine. I'm like, oh, really? Bullshit. Fucking hate my family. None of them ever actually give a shit about each other. Ever. And they're all like, you're the fucking bad one. Scapegoat, 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 scapegoat. You're the reason why all of this. Thanks, I was born. Fucking dicks. No one gives a shit about my stuff. And that's like, when I reach out, it's like, hey, any of you care and maybe fucking want to step in to the fucking evil, shitty person I have to deal with? The mom? No. Then they're going to defend her every fucking time, and you're the one that's causing the issues, and you... Fucking sick and tired of my goddamn life. I want to be out of this fucking situation. I've been trying to get away from my abusive family for a long time. It is hard as fuck. I can't get a job. I can't work a job. I can't get SSI. I can't fucking get them to fucking say I'm disabled. I can't get away. I have an apartment that's through an SMI housing, which, by the way, that's a whole other situation and issue, because it's like, do you know how hard it was? For most people, we're talking, it is, not was, but for most people to get a classification of seriously mentally ill. They have to jump through hoops and go through multiple fucking interviews and all this other shit. I managed to get mine while I was in the hospital, and I kept fucking calling, and they gave me a number to call to try and set up an appointment or something. I was in the hospital, like any mental health hospital, psych ward. They'll let you have a phone and you can call, but like, 1-2 conversations with a family member or whatever, you know what I mean? But it's like, I'm gonna fucking call, I can never get through, it rings, and then it's like, leave a message, just fucking, anyways, I got my diagnosis comes through, and when I'm in the third hospital stay, family doesn't even go shit. My mother goes to the hospital for trying to do that shit. Meanwhile, me, the second time she tried, I'm the one who discovers her. I'm the one who has to pull her, like literally pick her up off the damn ground, get her onto the fucking goddamn bed, call 911, get the whole fucking thing set up so that she goes to the hospital and gets help. Me. My dad doesn't even notice. She's sleeping, he's sleeping next to her. You know what I mean? She's sleeping right next to him. Family don't give a fuck about each other. I'm the only one reaching out. And not just only when there's an issue. But they never remember those parts. Family's a bunch of garbage motherfuckers. The only decent one that ever came out of that fucking situation. Whatever. Just need to vent that. It's just like, well, how come you... Shut up. Shut up your little stupid face holes. You're idiots that want to make excuses for your own idea that that's what you should do. Shut up. I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for your little fucking idea or advice or anything. You don't know anything. Shut the fuck up. Learn to recognize when you should add that advice or opinion in. Shut up completely forever before that point. You need to learn that. You do. Bye.